Okay, in this mini lecture, we're going to talk about the two major aspects that we have which define the boundaries and the characteristics of culture. And those are basically the material and the non-material cultures or aspects of culture that define any particular culture, any particular subculture or counterculture or as we defined it in the previous lecture. The material culture is actually the easier one to understand. It has to do with all of the examples and all of the things that we have in our culture which have a symbolic meaning to it and that we use. The natural and human created objects which have certain sort of meaning to it. Certainly if you take an iPod, that has certain meaning to it in our culture. Or the fact that I'm standing behind a lectern has meaning in our culture. So these are objects that have both obvious and practical uses, and they are given a certain amount of meaning. Sometimes these meanings are fleeting. For instance, as we have in our textbook, the idea of the Hummer, which had a huge amount of meaning when it came out, being associated with the military, and it was strong, and it go out into the to the wilderness. But it lost its and therefore became a status symbol, being also a luxury car. But it lost its meaning when it also became known as something which was a terrible gas guzzler. So everything in our culture that we had would be part of that material culture. Foods also. Eggnog has you don't normally drink eggnog in the summer, although it does seem to have some sort of meaning during the month of December. So food can also have certain meanings and certain connotations. You don't normally have a whiskey sour on a Tuesday morning, or Monday morning for that matter. But it might be appropriate when you're going out to a cocktail party. That is the material culture. A much more broader and much more complex aspect, which needs more categorization, is the non-material culture. Okay, and the non-material culture will include the non-physical creations that people can't really necessarily hold or see, but they do define an individual's relationship to himself, to the culture, and to other people within the culture. It's sometimes obviously the material culture will affect the non-material, and the non-material will affect the material culture. Like, for instance, used to be a very strong value of eating dinner together in the family. The family came home and ate dinner together. Now, the new aspect of the material culture was the microwave, and the microwave enabled everybody to fix their own food. Even a small child can stick his food into the microwave. Now, there were other factors such as the necessity for both parents to go working, and the different economic factors and different cultural factors. But bottom line was, you didn't have to eat together. No, you didn't need one person to prepare a meal for everybody in order for people should eat. That wasn't necessarily the most efficient way of doing it. The most efficient way to do it is to buy something and put it in the microwave. Now, of course, that trend started beforehand, all the way in 1954, when they came out with a TV dinner, where one was able to put a whole meal into the oven for 15-20 minutes and take it out and eat it and sit in front of the television. But it became solidified, and the culture became one that we don't necessarily sit down and eat dinner together. And that became a cultural fact in American society today, which doesn't necessarily mean that's the same thing in other societies, and even other modern societies or westernized societies. In order to continue with this, we want to talk about five different levels of or definitions that we need to use in order to understand the non-material culture. Again, these are things that ways of thinking about or such things like that. Now, the first thing we would say is a belief. Okay? Obviously, it's not something we might know in sociological terms. A belief is something we know to be true. We know it to be true about the way the world operates. Now, is it true in the metaphysical sense? Probably not. But it's not important because it is true in our cultural sense. So it's true in the ideas of belief can be based in faith or experience or tradition or anything. But the fact that it is a belief has a great amount of influence on the relationships we're going to have with others. A profound effect. The idea that a person cannot get a good job, a belief, the American believes that you can't get a good job if you don't go to school and get yourself a degree. That's a belief. Statistically, it might not even be true. One might be able to get a good job without getting a college degree. Or you might not be very smart if you can't get a college degree. A friend of mine recently had did some therapy counseling with a 60-year-old man. The first thing he told to my friend, he says, I'm not a very bright person. He says, why? He says, well, because I didn't go to college. He was 60 years old. And so what did he do? Well, he opened up I think it was a bakery or something like that when he was 18 years old because he dropped out of college. And at this time, at 60, he had just sold his business for $8.5 million. So my friend asked him, so how did you do that? He said, well, I had to negotiate. When you negotiated your deals and you bought other companies. Well, what did you do? Well, I had my lawyers next to me. But I'm not a very bright person, so I really had to negotiate and talk to other people about it. He says, but you actually did the negotiations. Yeah, but I'm not really a very bright person. Why not? Well, because I never finished college. So is that necessarily true? No, but it was a belief that he had and he grew up with. So that would be a belief, and it actually influenced the way he related to the world. So that's the idea of beliefs. A second idea would be the concept of values. In other words, a non-material culture puts upon an idea of the value of what is right and what is wrong. Such things as
obedience and freedom, health and fitness, modesty, honesty, self-esteem. I mean, these are possible things which we call the values. It tells us what might be important in your life, might not be for somebody else, but they are things which you choose within the framework of being important. Is the value of modesty something important in your life? Is the value of freedom more important in your life? And they are defined by the culture. Certainly, for instance, the idea maybe in North Korean culture, the idea of freedom is not something which is, highly valued, but order might be highly valued. Haven't been in North Korea, but that certainly is more important there than and certainly the modesty was much more important in Saudi Arabian culture than the freedom. And in American culture, freedom is more important than modesty. So that's the idea of values and how they can be integrated into our concepts of culture. Let's talk about norms. And norms could be written or unwritten rules that specify behaviors as appropriate, inappropriate, according to particular
situation. Now, these can go into two different categories: folkways and mores. And folkways are like important or unimportant aspects of behavior, which if somebody does it, they'll look funny at you, but that's not, they're not thrown out. Mores is more essential, something which is essential to the well-being of the group itself. So for instance, if you're at a friend's house and you just had a nice good meal and you make a great big burp at the end of the meal, I mean, maybe somebody's going to say to you, "Oh, disgusting," or something like that, or look at you funny and, you know, well, what do you want? I say, just drank a big glass of Coca-Cola, that's what's going to happen. But you're not likely to get thrown out or even uninvited next time. On the other hand, if you're in Japan and you did the same behavior, well, then you're being polite because you're showing that you appreciated the meal. And that's just, but if you didn't, you still probably would be invited. You may be a little bit rude by not belching, but hey, not a big deal. On the other hand, Moors are much more strict. If you walk into a church without your clothes on, you're likely not to be able to be invited back there again. If you wipe your nose on your host's tablecloth, you're likely not to be invited there again. These are like mores. They're essential to, and they're considered as essential to the well-being of the group itself. Further, so those are the two things which we'll put into the ideas of mores. Two more. The idea of symbols. There's one symbol. That's the symbol which I have in saying A-OK, which I mentioned last time. But there are a lot of symbols which one might use to being good or bad or happy or unhappy, and it's people assign the name and a meaning, but it's not evident because from what it is in of itself. If I were to go into a courtroom, I would be asked to take off my hat as a sign of respect for the court. The judge will not let me sit with a hat on the court. However, in Jewish culture, then one keeps something on his head to show respect for God. So I have a type of hat on my head all the time. It happens to be that if I would put on a large hat in the court, they would tell me to take it off, and this would be allowed because we're in the United States. But maybe in some other cultures, it has been that even that sort of the skull cap which I wear is not even accepted, and I would have to take it off. Otherwise, I would be in contempt of court because it's disrespectful. What is intrinsically disrespectful about your head being covered or uncovered? Nothing's intrinsic about it. It's a symbol that we accept. And of course, language itself is a bunch of symbols that we agree upon using. The sounds themselves don't really mean anything, but we ascribe to them to meanings, to the sounds. So that we have words that in one language mean one thing, and another language means another. The door is some sort of thing the word door is not intrinsically a portal, a way for going in and out from one room to the other. In Hebrew, the word door means generation, and you stay in a generation from the beginning to the end. So it's not moving from one place to another. But the word door itself has ascribed within the culture a particular meaning. Sometimes has emotional meanings to it also. And sometimes with a lot of words gives a lot of meanings to it, that will also give us a lot of a more depth in that culture itself. So, and that, by the way, which we can talk about, is called the linguistic relativity hypothesis, which means when there's more words, then there's more depth, a possibility to on that particular concept in that culture.